Welcome all to the 15th of August 2022 Council meeting. I open the meeting at 7:05 p.m. I will now pass on to the Acting CEO who will read out the formalities.
Welcome all. This is an ordinary meeting of Council. My name is Darren Bennett. I'm the Acting Chief Executive Officer while Alison Beckwith is on leave. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is being live streamed via Council website and Facebook page. The live stream is not interactive. Any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to Council or have a bearing on the conduct of the meeting. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow participation without having to attend meetings in person. Public participation guidelines. Rules for public participation during the meeting. Please note that any public questions submitted to tonight's Council meeting will be printed in the minutes. Council does not accept questions as part of the request to speak process. No statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit applies to all requests to speak. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5-minute mark, and officers will sum up in the last 30 seconds if required for statements being read out. Members of the gallery leaving the meeting. If any member of the public gallery departs the chambers while the meeting is still in progress, we ask that you please not hold conversations with others until you're outside of the building. Noise from the foyer area, both outside the chamber and downstairs, reverberates into the chamber and the live streaming. Thank you in advance. I'll now introduce councillors in attendance tonight. I'll start at my left. Councillor Alison Champion, Councillor Tom Melican, Councillor Alida McKern. I'll now introduce my councillor colleagues to my right. Mayor Councillor Elizabeth Neely, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Fiona Mitsikanos, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. This evening we're also joined by directors, Mark Giglio, Director of Corporate Services, Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, Kath Brackett, Director of Community Wellbeing, and Greg Gale, Acting Director Community Assets. Also here tonight supporting the Council is Gina Burden, Manager Corporate Governance and Communications, members of the Governance and IT teams, and our Jets team coordinating our live stream this evening. We thank you for participating in the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Darren. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council, I acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I would also like to pay my respects to Wurundjeri Woiwurrung elders past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait elders joining us today. Council is committed to and values diversity within our community. I will now read Banyule's diversity statement that demonstrates our commitment. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and rights for everyone, principles which empower, foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. I'll now move to apologies. I note an apology from Councillor Peter De Morelos this evening. Confirmation of the minutes from the meeting held on the 18th of July 2022. Can I please have a councillor to move and second? Moved, Councillor Melican. Seconded, Councillor Mitsonikos. I now put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Disclosure of interests as required at any other meeting of Council. Councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to Council. councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. At any point throughout the meeting, if any other councillor recognises that they have a general or material interest, they can flag that at that point and follow the same procedure. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? No? There are no disclosures. Disclosures of staff. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight? No? Okay, moving on. So we have a presentation this evening, and it's my pleasure to invite Tyler Ingram from Council's Open Space and Strategic Projects team to present the Parks and Leisure Australia Play Space Award. So welcome, Tyler, to make a presentation. And Tyler's from our Strategic Projects team.
Thank you. So tonight I'm really proud to present this Parks and Leisure Australia VicTAS Play Space Award for the best playground under $500,000. So this is a great achievement and that we've been recognised as an industry leader for play space design. McLeod Village Green Play Space is a fantastic space and was upgraded in 2020 as part of our reoccurring play space renewals. The space is a multi-generational play space that offers unique opportunities for not only children but families, because play is for everyone. There's some really exciting components within this play space, including musical instruments, sculptures, nature play, and even a potions table for kids to really use their imagination. So it's all a bit of fun there. One of the key components to the play space as well is an interactive equipment, and this is the second of its type to be installed in Australia and the first in a local government area. So it was really exciting to be able to have the get-go and come up with this really great design and get it through our management and get it in the ground. And it's really shown that doing something different is, it does pay off. So I'm really excited that we've been recognised for this achievement. So I think going forward, if we highlight and look at this continual pushing the boundaries in our play spaces throughout the municipality, it's really exciting to see what we can do. So not every space is going to be award-winning, but if we really focus on those regional and neighbourhood spaces, it's going to be amazing and creating these great opportunities for family into the future. So I'm very proud for all of my hard work and to hand this over to you. So congratulations.
Lovely.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to speak to the award.
Thank you, Councillor.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you, Tyler, on this award, and I think it's befitting that I congratulate Tyler as a fellow landscape architect. I think it's really exciting to see what is happening in local government in design, especially in design of open space. In Banyule, we have over 600 hectares of open space, so it's an enormous playground for a designer to do their good work. I think Tyler raises a very interesting point in regards to pushing the boundaries of design in government. That's where I think we have a lot of these opportunities, and this award is testimony to the faith and also the opportunity provided in a local government setting like this to push those boundaries and set new standards for what we call best practice. So once again, I'd like to congratulate Tyler. I must admit, I was just saying to Tyler that many years ago, when I was senior landscape architect for the city of Darebin, we won a major Australian Institute of Landscape Architects award for the design of Clyde Jones Reserve, where we were able to work with, and some of you will remember this, the old Northcote pottery, making tiles and other art pieces with local primary schools. You know, opportunities like that are rare in private practice, but they are plentiful in local government. And I hope that Banyule continues to provide you and the team, the design and planning team, with opportunities to express and develop your design capabilities. Thank you for presenting the award. We're very proud of you, Tyler.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Melican.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tyler. Yeah, great effort. It's amazing when you go down there. I remember when they produced that new high-tech playground, the running around bit, I forget what they call it, but the kids were so excited when that finally got up and running. But it's not only that it's the dry riverbed that runs through there, so there's this high-tech part of it, but there's also nature play there as well, but there's also structured play and also equipment there as well, so there's something for everybody. And I know I shouldn't say it, but that playground wasn't certainly the most expensive playground we've ever built, but it's the most popular. And I often go to some of our other playgrounds that don't get anywhere near the people there, and it's busy during the day. It's particularly busy on the weekends. I know Malahang's been a huge success, but I think for value for money, this would have to be one of the best projects. So congratulations, well done on your great initiatives. There's a few more things we need to do at McLeod, but I think that play equipment has been a real boom for the people that use it, but it's been a boom for the traders as well, and has really made McLeod I always like to think that McLeod should become the mailing road of the north, and I think with what's been placed there, the fact that it is so changeable, it is so enjoyable to be there. It's not just run-of-the-mill, come along, play in the swings and the slides and that's it. It's so much more than that, and you should be congratulated on that, and very proud and very pleased to see you win an award.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Castaldo.
I didn't know that award was coming tonight, but thank you. I know my children appreciate it, whether it's climbing on the roof of the train down there or the digital landscape. I didn't understand how it worked until the kids started showing me. And as they grow, just even a year or two, you notice they interact with different elements in the park. And as a councillor, I'm excited to see new parks come in with new elements that I can really enjoy taking my kids to see around Banyule, and that is one of their favourites. So thank you for your contribution.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Well said, councillors. We're very proud, so we appreciate it. Okay, we'll keep moving on. Our well-built city, item 5.1, Development Planning and Building Activities Report. There are no speakers on this item, and there's an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Councillor Melican. Moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Champion. Councillor Melican, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I would actually. You'd have to say that this is an excellent report, and the number of permits being resolved within time periods is excellent, and I think that goes back to the credit to the officers, because we have been experiencing the pandemic and it's incredibly difficult to coordinate the meetings we sometimes have to discuss planning issues, and I think they've done an excellent job to do that. I noticed that planning applications have gone up slightly, but the number of more complex ones has dropped a bit, which sort of reflects the economy the way it is at the moment. But I think this is a real credit to Natasha's team and the fact that they've worked so hard through a difficult period to get more applications resolved within the time period and get the number of outstanding applications to a very low level. So I congratulate Natasha on her determination to take that back, because I think this is an excellent report that shows what hard work, dedication can do even during a difficult period. So well done.
Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I read the report with interest, thanks to the planning team. And what has captured my attention is page 9 of the report, the increase in the number of decisions which have been overturned by VCAT in the review period, which of course was from January to June 2022. Now, according to the report, 67% of applications for review were set aside by the tribunal. This means 33% of council's decisions were upheld at VCAT. This is a marked difference to the review period of 2021, where I understand that VCAT upheld 51.92% of council's planning decisions. This is of considerable concern, and it's interesting to note that Banyule Council attributed the upholding of 51.92% of council planning decisions, giving higher weight in the decisions to local policy, including neighbourhood character, tree protection and strategic context. Now, I'd like it noted in the minutes, Madam Mayor, the reasons for upholding of nearly 52% of council planning decisions in that review period of 2021, and that these reasons be considered and discussed as part of the current review of the housing and neighbourhood character strategy.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just my observation from that report, similar to Councillor McKern's, was the decline in our success rate at the VCAT. But I do think that also raises questions for us as a group of councillors in terms of the applications that we are calling in and we're bringing to this chamber, and we are potentially overturning officer recommendations. So I think we also have to shine a light on ourselves and some of our own behaviours and our own decision making, and working through whether or not that is contributing to the decline in the performance. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Just as I think Councillor Malikan mentioned before, it was interesting that the planning application requests increased by 2.3% in the 2021-2022 financial year, and then the multi-dwelling developments decreased by 30%, which is the first time I believe that's happened in a review period, and and that's got to do with the uncertainty of the market. So, these sorts of applications will continue to increase, and we have to look at our own policies. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 5.2, Greville Road Shopping Precinct. There are no speakers on this item. There's an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Councillor Mitsonikos.
Aye. Thanks, Mayor. I would actually like to put an alternative recommendation. So points 1 and 2 as is, but 3, undertake consultation with the traders of the centre to explore options for some interim beautification works and maintenance before the strategic work is completed.
Thank you, councillor. With the addition, do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Mitsonikos.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks to the officers who've worked on the Greville Road precinct item, and also to the traders who went to the effort to create the original petition, which had 57 signatures. It's a valued strip of shops, which is much on offer for shoppers, and I often shop there to pick up items, or I need to pick up a parcel from the post office. When I visited the shops to speak with the traders, the general opinion was that they want safety, but also an aesthetically pleasing centre. It does look pretty bare and tired, apart from some planter boxes which a few traders have put outside their shops. It's important that the interim measures that we put forward tonight are considered prior to the long-term strategy. Future streetscape works can consider a focus on infrastructure that increases safety along shop fronts. And I look forward to seeing future works here that will please the eye of this valued shopping strip, which is much loved by many of the locals, and also put the traders' minds at ease.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Malikan.
Oh, I'll make a few comments. Yeah, this used to be my patch, and as Councillor said, it's a very well used and popular little shopping strip, and there have been incidences there, and it's difficult for council to fully resolve those issues and prevent it from happening. But yeah, I'd certainly support some beautification work in Greville Road because it is such a popular and vibrant little centre that, and how we can make it safe is incredibly difficult. Yeah, the issues, we've had a couple of issues there as well, but we've had issues right across the city as well, so it's difficult to resolve and how to prevent those incidents from occurring. But I think if we can make it more attractive, more appealing, while providing some safety improvements, that would be a good thing. So I'll support this motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Mayor, thank you. I forgot to ask a question of officers beforehand. What I was going to ask is that in assessing this, I understand there has been, I think, 3 accidents with shops in the last 4 years. That's quite concerning. And one of the things I haven't seen is a report about how many cars go through shop fronts in our shopping centres. So I would like to see that we do have some form of a report that brings us up to speed with regards to the danger, with regards to cars going into shop fronts, and will this strategic work pick that up?
A question to Director Swan.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Di Pasquale. We haven't presented a report specifically on the issue of cars into shop fronts as part of this, but absolutely can consider it as part of that future strategic work we do with our local centres. So we do understand that there are isolated instances of this. This centre appears to have been had more than its own share, if that is a good way to represent it. What we're not seeing, though, is a trend, which is what we look for in centres like this, of those cars leaving the car parks and crashing into the shopping centre in a sort of specific location, which you might see in some other centres where perhaps the entrance into the centre causes if you lose control of your vehicle. So each of these seem to have been isolated instances where there's been some confusion with the pedals and not happened in the same locations. So Councillor Melican's quite correct that these are very challenging to manage, because what you don't want to do is to create a sort of impenetrable fortress between your parking areas and your shopping centre that create accessibility issues and go to the issue of the beauty of the centre and its enjoyment, because it's all bollards and barricades. But certainly an issue that we can get some statistics on and can inform our future work as to where we do these things.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just quite interesting that these occurrences are happening, and it's amazing that we haven't had any major injuries, deaths, or anything like that. So, yeah, if we can prevent anything with this work, that would be that would be a great undertaking. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to add weight to what Councillors Melican, Di Pasquale, most importantly the Ward Councillor, Councillor Mitsonikos, have said, and so to the Director of City Development. Greville Road, delightful little shopping centre, and whenever I ride through the area, it's absolutely packed with local patrons. So it's gorgeous, and it has a really nice mix of all the right services: a post office, cafe, bakery, medical. All times I've been there, parking has been at capacity. So that speaks, I think, volumes. I too, like Councillor Di Pasquale, was concerned to read that there had been incidents of parked motorists accidentally mounting the curb and accelerating onto the footpath Interestingly, I recently bore witness to a parked car accidentally reversing into the chicken shop at Bulleen Plaza. And I can tell you it is the most dangerous and frightening sight to behold. Thank goodness no one was injured, but the driver, he was visibly shaken, and I can't estimate the damage done to the chicken shop. So having actually witnessed an accidental vehicle intrusion was something that actually helped me decide that, yes, we do need to be doing something. And just to speak a little bit longer, I think Melbourne has quite, as has been pointed out, been exposed to the tragedy of hostile vehicles intruding places of particularly mass gatherings of the public. And we've seen a subsequent proliferation of vehicle security barriers. However, I do concur on this occasion with the officer's comments that vehicle security barriers are not recommended in this situation. This is a relatively small shopping centre, and passive barriers could have a place, as Councillor Mitsonikos has spoken to before, with a good dollop of common sense. Creative urban solutions appropriate to the site, such as energy-absorbing planter boxes, could be something that is of a reasonable cost and could be installed here to give pedestrians a sense of security and some form of barrier.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 5.3, Wallace Street, Ivanhoe, traffic speed and volume concerns. There are two speakers on this item. Nathan Sterling will address council in person. Nathan, please approach the lectern. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
No, thank you for the opportunity. So I've read the report, as I assume you all have, and the first point I want to make, having lived in the street for some 12 years, is, and at the risk of not sounding like Donald Trump, the figures on the volume and speed are just gobsmackingly implausible to everyone that in the speakers, everyone in the street who's looked at it. Just this morning, I sat looking at the traffic, and it was averaging about at least 10 cars a minute. Now, 10 cars a minute would be 60 an hour. Now, that's nothing like the figures that are given for peak and peak hour traffic in the morning. Now, I don't know why the figures are what they are, and as I say, it's probably not much point trying to dispute them, but I do have to tell you anecdotally that they look wrong. They look very wrong. The second anecdotal evidence I want to give you is that just within the last 12-month period, I've seen 3 people nearly knocked over by cars. There's very high pedestrian traffic on Wallace Lane that cuts right in the middle of Wallace Street. The third incident that was about 2 months ago was just a young boy who must have literally come within about a couple of centimetres of being knocked over. The report says that Wallace Street is not a high pedestrian generator because it's all residential frontage. That's just incorrect. The Scout Hall is 8A Wallace Street. The Scout Hall is very busy. It has and Peter from Scouts can talk more, so I won't go into the 31 seconds remaining going on that, but it is a very high activity street. The other point, or one of many points I would raise about the report, is it talks about it being impossible to have it zoned as 40 kilometres based on the guidelines. Now, I've looked at the Department of Victoria's speed zoning technical guidelines, and that's not my reading of the guidelines at all. If you look at section 3.4 in the guidelines, you can see that there is plenty of scope for it being a 40 kilometre an hour street, particularly given the Scout Hall being right in the middle. And particularly when you look at the map, you'll see that when you go to the end of Wallace Street and get onto Livingston Road, you've got 40 kilometres in both directions on either side. You've also got a new childcare centre that's just been built at the end of Wallace Street, not in Wallace Street, but on Livingston Road, just at the end of Wallace Street. So there's a plethora of reasons, in my opinion, for safety, because it really, for residents in the street, it only seems a matter of time before someone is going to be seriously injured or killed due to the massive amount of traffic that is going down that street.
Please sum
being
up.
promoted by Google, no doubt. Google tells you to go down that street. And finally, if I can just be indulged, I would say that another recommendation is going to push traffic down to Shaw Street or Belmont Road. I mean, if you look at the map, Shaw Street is a lot further away. You've got to snake all the way down Kenilworth to get to Shaw Street. So again, I'm very dubious that would happen. So
Thank you, Nathan. Peter Baranow will address... Yes? Yes, we can ask questions. Sorry. Sorry, Nathan. Councillor Malikan.
Thank you, Nathan. You talked about some potential solutions. What would you like to see happen in this street?
Well, ideally, and the petition was, I think, signed by every resident on the street. Ideally, we'd like to see it as a one-way street. Now, the arguments against that, as I understand it, is that you can't get the waste trucks down there, or it would push traffic down to Shaw Street. Now, in terms of the latter proposition, I just don't think that's sound. In terms of what waste trucks can and can't do, I don't know, but I do know that there's a one-way street. I forget the name of it offhand. It's after Shaw Street or after Belmont Road even. But so in the absence of being able to make it a one-way street, certainly it should be 40 kilometres an hour. That seems to be a no-brainer. Yeah. Secondly, there should be some devices, I don't know what you call them, chicanes or bumps or something, to just slow the traffic down, because people are just crazily speeding down the street. You see some cars that must literally be going 80 kilometres plus, because there's no bumps, there's no nothing, and it's just a straight street. Just a straight street. And you've got people walking across right in the middle from Wallace Lane. It's really quite crazy.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Baranow will address council. Please approach the lectern. Oh, you're there already.
Hi. I'm the group leader at 10th Avenue Scout Group. We're in 8A Wallace Street. We've moved several of our units from Ford Street to Wallace Street in the last 12 months, so we've sort of become occupants of that area. We've noticed the traffic flow is extremely high in Wallace Street and quite dangerous, particularly when there's cars parked on both sides of the road, which is about 80% of the time. It's very hard to get through, so it essentially becomes a one-way street. Because we're down the laneway, we actually get our parents to park in Wallace Street and walk their kids down the laneway. That's a safety issue. We don't have much parking. Well, there's no access or very limited access down Wallace Street Lane, and we have limited parking. So if we had cars going up and down the lane, that's even more dangerous. What I'm getting feedback from the parents is that they're trying to cross the road. Sometimes they've got to wait for 5 or 6 minutes because cars are zooming up and down. They are travelling much faster than 50 kilometres an hour. The worst times are between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning, when the tradies use it as a rabbit warren to get from Livingston Street through to Upper Heidelberg Road, and also from our perspective at between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock when we have scouts, and they're also using it as a rabbit warren to get home. It's become a hazard. We've had numerous close incidences. We have cars' doors that have been damaged. We've had mirrors on cars that have been smashed because it's a very narrow street. Trying to get kids walking through that traffic is particularly dangerous. Tonight, before I came down here, I did a little bit of a test myself. It took me 17 minutes to get from Heidelberg Road, Upper Heidelberg Road, Ivanhoe, through to Livingston Street, going through the traffic lights. 3.5 minutes to get through the Wallace Street Kellingworth way. So it's a huge incentive for people to use that as a shortcut. It's dangerous, it's too fast, we've got to do something about it. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to ask a question of the Speaker.
Yes, Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Peter.
Who's speaking?
Over here, Peter.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, Peter, sorry.
With the mask, it can make it a little bit difficult to know where the sound is coming from.
Yep.
Thank you for your presentation. There's some very strong messages there, and I must admit, in relation to the officer's report, scout usage of the street wasn't a consideration. Mm-hmm. So that is something that I think myself and fellow councillors do need to consider. How many scouts are using the hall there on Wallace Lane, and how many times a week are they in the building?
Okay, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays is when we use the hall. It varies in numbers. On Mondays and Tuesdays it's about 30 or 40 cars or families are arriving at the hall and coming back. Wednesdays is a lot less. We only have about 10 in that unit, in the Venture unit, and then on Thursdays is probably the most dangerous when we have our little Joeys getting there, and they're the most vulnerable, I guess, trying to get in and out of the area.
Thank you. And weekends?
Not so much on weekends. It's really just if we're going on a camp or something like that, we'd have trailers going in and out, but not so much on weekends.
So parking is one of the main issues for Scouts arriving to the Scout Hall?
Well, at the Scout Hall, there's parking for half a dozen cars, but because it's such a narrow laneway, we actually tell parents to park up on Waller Street and walk their kids down. We don't want them parking in the hall and then trying to turn around with kids coming in. We get too many squashed kids that way. Don't like it.
Well, you wouldn't want squashed kids, would you,
No,
Peter?
we try to avoid it.
And Peter, do you have Scouts walking to the Scout
We
Hall,
have some
crossing
Scouts
Wallace
that ride and walk,
Street
yes. Yep, absolutely.
during peak hour traffic?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Councillors, I understand there's a proposed motion that a councillor would like to Councillor McKern to go through the motion. Your microphone.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. We've heard some very concerning anecdotal statistics from the two speakers, and I would like to move a motion, Madam Mayor, that Council undertake consultation in this financial year with Wallace Street residents and the 10th Ivanhoe Scouts group regarding the implementation of an angled two-lane slow point in Wallace Street and the changes to parking required to implement. Now, I'd actually like to amend this to indicate two angled two-lane slow points, as was previously discussed with the Transport Manager. If you would, Madam Mayor. Point 2, that Council refer an allocation for the required budget for the construction of the slow points, being plural, in Wallace Street to the 2023-24 financial year budget process, subject to majority support from the consultation with, of course, Wallace Street residents and the Scouting group. And that should read with subject to majority support from the consultation with rather than including Wallace Street residents and the Scout group. Thank you. And 3, note that the request for resident-only parking was investigated in accordance with Council's on-street parking management framework, and that parking occupancy levels did not meet the criteria for resident-only parking. Advice was provided to the primary petitioner. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder for this addition? Seconded, Councillor Melican. Councillor McKern.
Mayor, before Councillor McKern gets into her thing, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Of the mover? Councillor McKern, I'm just wondering the wording of undertake consultation this financial year seems to me like it's a very long time. We've had a report come to us saying that there should be no changes, and now we're looking at making changes. May I suggest to you we word that ASAP or as soon as practicable, or somehow get it done within this financial year?
Well, thank you for your suggestion, Councillor De Pasquale. Through you, Mayor, if I could ask that question of the Director of City Development, if there is scope to actually have the consultation done before the end of this year. Would that be suitable, Councillor De Pasquale?
Yeah, if there are issues with safety, as we have heard, and we're looking to make a change, and if we are going to move it into a budget that's already penciled in, so to speak.
All right, we'll go to Director Swan.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. You're quite right. It is likely that consultation would occur before the end of the year. As you'd be aware, with our own processes for anything that we're referring to future budget and capital works programs, we need to have our homework done in advance. So I'd certainly be quite confident to say that that consultation would happen this year, calendar year. And yeah, this financial year is the same thing, but if you wanted to change it to the end of this year, that would be perfectly fine.
Thank you, Director Swan and Councillor Di Pasquale. I think to cross T's and dot I's, I would like to, Madam Mayor, amend the motion to state that consultation be done by December of 2022.
Madam Mayor, before we go amending, I had a question and a comment. Well, I suppose probably more a comment actually, just in terms of how the alternative's being framed, but it concerns me from a governance perspective that we would be looking to refer things to a budget before a report has come back. So my preference would be, for one, that the consultation occur, and that there be a new point two, that a report come back to council on the outcomes of that consultation process with a report on the next steps. And then depending on that report, then the council then may look to wish to move it to a budget process. But in the absence of a report, in the absence of independent analysis, I can't support the recommendation. It would not be appropriate governance. So I'm wondering if that's amenable to the mover, through you, Mayor.
Councillor McKern?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think in this case, if a report should come back to council for adoption or otherwise, that we look to have the consultation done earlier than December because of the budget planning process. So can we bring that forward? Because a report coming back to council, I think, would need to come back to council by December.
Okay, so we can make these changes now. So instead of referring to the budget, referring to a report to come back to council, which in whatever appropriate wording of that.
I think the wording might be that receives a report on the outcomes of the consultation.
And
From
that
a
would
governance
be
perspective,
by December of this year. And
the
through
consultation, well, that change will be number one. To undertake the consultation.
undertake the consultation as soon as possible.
Yep.
Before December this year, if it's coming back to council as a report.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll miss the budget process for the next financial year.
Yep. Okay. So just for process, this is the motion. The seconder, Councillor Melican.
I think we'd be removing point 3. Yep.
Is the seconder happy with this motion? Yes. Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to thank our speakers who've come to council meeting tonight to express real concerns about the traffic in what is a very narrow, short residential street used not only by local residents but by people who are using the street as a rat run from Livingston Street to Upper Heidelberg Road to avoid lights at the corner of Seddon and Upper Heidelberg Road. And thanks to Google, but also thanks to local knowledge. Council did resolve for a report to be returned to council in the first half of this year, and with respect, I apologise on behalf of council for the delay in this report. However, it has now been delivered, and I appreciate that while the officer's report did not show support for traffic calming, we have heard some very compelling anecdotal evidence this evening from both local resident and one of the scout leaders of the local scout groups, which I think, as responsible councillors, we need to observe. The fact that although 85% of vehicles are travelling at or below the speed limit of 50 kilometres means that 15% are over this limit, with the highest speed recorded at 108 kilometres an hour. This does need to be noted. This is the second petition, Madam Mayor, regarding traffic and parking concerns being raised by Wallace Street residents within a matter of a few years. Given it takes a serious amount of time and effort to raise a petition, and given the real persistent concerns raised by our speakers tonight, I believe the local community of Wallace Street is acting in good faith and not for some irrelevant purpose. And I should like that noted too. In a reciprocal show of good faith, I, on behalf of the Wallace Street community, appeal to all my fellow councillors to approve the motion that I have proposed, and that the consultative community engagement with the Wallace Street community does actually bear good fruit. Thank you again to the speakers, and I hope we can actually sort out a solution, a long-term solution for the benefit of all Wallace Street users. Thanks,
Thank you,
Madam Mayor.
councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Few comments. Thank you very much, and thanks for the speakers tonight. It's good to get a local perspective, and clearly by the volumes of people using this road, it's not local, so it is through traffic that's using it. And this road was never designed to cater for through traffic. And if you look at the hierarchy of roads, through traffic should be on major roads. That's what they're for, and not side streets. And it is clear that the people are using this to avoid traffic lights, which is wrong. People are entitled to drive down Wallace Street, but they shouldn't be using it at speed, and they should not be rat running through there. Now, the preference would be to do this because council can't go around putting speed humps, chicanes in every street, because that's incredibly expensive and difficult to maintain. There must be ways we can find to return Wallace Street back to what it was designed for, and that was for the locals that live there and for people doing deliveries. It's not designed for through traffic. So there are a number of methods we can do to do that, but as was alluded to by one of the speakers, that if we ban turns into Wallace Street or out of Kenilworth Drive, that'll push the traffic somewhere else. Well, that may be true, but we do need to find a solution to this problem. And how we do that will be difficult, because people say everyone says, I want a speed hump, but then when you go and propose to put one outside certain houses, people will say, I don't want it out near my house, it's too noisy. So there's a huge range of issues here, but clearly from the volume and the speed, that council does need to act. And we should be consulting to find out what is the easiest and the longest term solution to fix this problem. And I'll support that tonight, and support a report coming back to council to find out ways we can fix this problem.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I'd just like to thank our mover, Councillor McKern, for being amenable to those amendments. I just think it's really important that we receive reports back before we go referring things to the budget. One is good governance. Two, we've got to be very careful about the state of finances in this council. So later on this evening, item 8.3, we're going to be receiving a report that shows we were unfavourable to budget last financial year by $5 million. We don't know how we're going at the moment in July and August. That's something that we'll be raising in item 8.3 about getting a heads up on how we're tracking this financial year. But we know with the economy, we know with inflation, we know that budgets are becoming tight. And I think the third thing as well is that as a council, we already allocate quite a sizable funding program to doing these sorts of things around the municipality. So this would be an add-on to that program. So we also have to just be careful about managing and not raising community expectations that we may not be able to deliver upon. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Mayor, thank you. Just looking at how this process has run, I think it's, just assessing it, I think it's been quite reasonable. I think the community has forwarded a petition. They've seen that there's been a problem out there. The petition came in, it was signed, I believe, by all residents, which I think is, whether that's correct or not, I'm not sure. I'm hoping. Yes? That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see all the community engaged in that area. It then came to council, and then the officers went and investigated, did traffic volumes and speeds, etc. Now, even if those do come in that they're within the limits acceptable, we still can make decisions because of different circumstances, be it scouts, be it, Google Maps will send people down this street rather than keep them on the main roads, and all these other facets. So that's why we're here to bring a bit of common sense to the conversation, and that's what we're doing tonight. So Councillor McKern has raised this tonight, and moving it forward a little bit more quickly. If there is any danger, I think we should be doing that. So that's why I did mention that to you, councillor. The other thing too, moving forward again, when this report comes in, if it does see that there are measures that could be used, possibly things like instead of waiting for the coming budget, we have done instances or have used instances where there's those rubber curbs which can be put in certain areas to possibly make those chicanes with those bollards as a temporary measure to probably increase the safety in the short term, and then refer it to the 2022-23 budget later on. That's a thing that could be done as well. So I'll wait for the report to come back, but I was just assessing the process, and I think it's worked pretty well so far. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak?
I'll just wrap up. Thank you. If no
Sum
other
up, Councillor
wish to
McKern.
speak. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've heard a lot of information this evening about the state of Wallace Street, and overall I am hearing a sympathetic ear on the part of councillors and an understanding ear regarding, as Councillor Di Pasquale has quite rightly put forward, a common sense approach. While there might be statistics and policies that say, oh, sorry, you don't meet the requirements for such and such action, a common sense approach needs to be taken when you consider holistic factors here, not just necessarily the speed, but when you look at other characteristics such as the street, as Councillor Malikan has pointed out, being used as a rat run, not as a local street for local residents, which is what the street was intended. Thank you, Councillor Malikan. And also that scouts, quite a number of scouts, at least 4 days a week, are using the local scout hall there, with up to 30 or 40 cars parked in Wallace Street and children actually crossing that street. These are factors that are not considered by traffic management policies, which we as councillors need to consider. So I look forward to the report, and also look forward to the consultation process that is undertaken by officers with our residents, and I look forward to hearing a positive outcome for all concerned. Thank you for attending this evening, gentlemen, and thank you for your feedback to fellow councillors.
I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 5.4, Beverley Road, Heidelberg, reconstruction of Warringal Park Oval. There are no speakers on this item, and there is an officer recommendation. I'm now calling for a motion. Moved, Councillor Castaldo. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Malikan. Councillor Castaldo, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is the first step in our resurfacing and ground improvement at Warringal Park. I'm looking forward to the planning application going through and getting sign-off from the Water Authority so we can roll out another high-quality sports ground resurfacing. It's been a good year for the Oval this year, but in previous years it's been an absolute bog. This project will include irrigation, drainage systems, perimeter fencing upgrades, cricket wicket, goalposts and storage cage, and doesn't require any vegetation removal. So I'm looking forward to this move going through smoothly and hopefully being placed in next year's budget and rolling out by the end of next year. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
I know this oval extremely well. I've played many a game of football there, and Heidelberg unfortunately beat McLeod there on the weekend, which I'm not very happy about, so I'm not sure why I'm seconding this. But it'd have to be one of the premier ovals in Banyule. It is a beautiful oval, and it's certainly part of where we hold the festival every year. A significant part of we use this ground every time we festival, and it is a real showpiece ground for this municipality. So to get, and I know in a wet year it can get incredibly boggy there, and it is very, I'm not sure why, but for some reason it's a popular club and they seem to have lots of players. So I think it's right that we do fix this ground and get it back to a state, to a surface that is more tolerant to wetter years. And yeah, so I'll support this tonight, but reluctantly.
Thank you, councillor, for the humour. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Mitsonikos.
Thanks, Mayor. I was actually just here on the weekend with one of my children playing, and I will say it was very, very muddy. So I'm looking forward to the changes. Yeah, and it's often like that. So my kids come home and they're absolutely filthy with mud everywhere. So it'll be nice not to have to spend hours washing their clothes, and there'll be lots of other parents thinking the same thing. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Well, it's a good outcome for the park because it enhances our recreational opportunities and the drainage. So I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Moving to item 7.1, which is right. Yep, I've jumped from there to 7.1. Consideration of submissions, Greensborough Town Centre Special Rate and Charge. There is one speaker on this item, Noella Jacobs, Centre Manager, Chamber of Commerce. She will address council in person. And yeah, please approach. You will have 2 minutes, Noella.
Thank you. I think most of you know me here. I've been very proud to be the Town Centre Manager for the last 18 years, would you believe? And there's been so many changes during that time. And without funding from the Special Rate Levy and our funding and the partnerships that we've formed over those years, we are just so thankful for what you have actually assisted us through, and particularly during COVID, it was just horrific. I was actually counselling people not to commit suicide. So it was a very difficult time. Our president wanted to speak tonight, but he couldn't come. He's a pharmacist, so he's often called away. He's asked me to just read out his statement, if I could do that. This is a submission under Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989 in support of the renewal of the Greensborough Shopping Precinct Special Rate and Charge Scheme. The Special Rate Levy has enabled Greensborough Town Centre to be marketed and to grow. With the additional support of funds from the Banyule City Council, it has allowed Greensborough to be professionally managed on behalf of all businesses. There are many disruptions to affect trade currently and in the future. These include the development of the Greensborough Railway Station, North East Freeway, and of course the current and future economic situation that is before us. Without these funds to assist us to sustain growth, Greensborough will go backwards. This is not what any of us wish to occur. Council support in the renewal of this levy and support financially with funds is paramount. As President of the Greensborough Chamber of Commerce, I'm speaking on behalf of Bill here, I wish to support the special rate levy in its current form. This partnership between Banyule City Council and the Greensborough Chamber of Commerce has been an efficient use of funds to help promote and market the centre that has benefited everyone in the community. And just like to say, I have been there and seen it go from bogone territory to where it is today. And there's a lot of work behind the scenes that we do, not just marketing, to work with all parties to make sure we make it safe, make it clean, and have fun with our marketing. Thank you.
Thank you, Noella. Any questions for Noella? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Bogong territory, that's Dinner Plain? That's Falls Creek area, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Noella.
Councillors, there's an officer recommendation in the papers. Could I please have a councillor move a motion? Moved, Councillor Di Pasquale. Do I have a seconded? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, happy to move this evening. So this is the timing where the Greensborough special rate and charge has come due for renewal. So this was put out, submissions were received, and there were no objections, which is a good thing, I think. And therefore we'll receive another report in September, so council meeting in September coming up. So we'll be making a decision then about the scheme. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Very, very briefly, I've lived in Montmorency for 21 years and I understand exactly what you're referring to, Noella.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 7.2, Watsonia Special Charge. There is one speaker on this item. Hesham Mobarek, President of the Watsonia Traders Association, will address council in person. You have 2 minutes. Thank you, Hesham.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I too also am a pharmacist, and I should have sent our centre manager. But as President of the Watsonia Traders Association, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to first of all thank Banyule City Council for their ongoing support for the Watsonia Shopping Centre. The special rate charge program has been a proven success in Watsonia. Our shopping centre is a critical component of our local community. We're at the heart of the community. We contribute socially, culturally, environmentally, and most importantly, economically. With the special rate charge program, we've been able to initiate engaging events and promotions and marketing initiatives, such as Celebrate Watsonia event, all aboard program during school holidays. The kids go to many centres going up and down and really enjoy, so the youth really enjoy that. Spin to win, free Watsonia Bucks activations. We've also developed our identity further with our Halloween event, Wattsylvania, now coming up to its 5th year. In addition, the Special Rates Charge program has enabled us to provide contributions to infrastructure, beautification projects, including graffiti removal, which is always ongoing, installation of street banners, street signage, and Christmas decorations, just to name a few. Having a strong Traders Association committee and centre manager goes a long way to support the traders, especially during difficult times and when we face issues. And this has been really important over the last couple of years, obviously during COVID, giving clear communication and assistance to traders through our multiple lockdowns. In more recent times, it's enabled us to engage in the planning for our new town square, which we're all looking forward to. Watsonia, of course, has also the extra challenges of navigating North East Link project, which is now at our doorstep, and we obviously really appreciate the extra support we get from Banyule City Council. We've developed a strong, successful partnership and wish obviously to continue this on for the next 5 years. In closing, I'd like to thank obviously our former councillor who we worked very closely with, Councillor Rick Garotti, and obviously working very closely with our current Councillor Mark Di Pasquale over the last 2 years. We really appreciate the input, and also want to thank the Economic Development team for the close relationship we've developed, and really look forward to working over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Hesham. No questions? Okay. There's an officer recommendation on the papers. Can I please have a councillor move? Moved, Councillor Di Pasquale. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Garotti. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Mayor, I was just getting an indication from Councillor Garotti whether he wanted to move, because he's a former ward councillor of this area and had been for 8 years and served them very, very well. So, and thank you for that acknowledgement too, Hesham. Very much appreciated. So for those in the gallery and listening at home as well, what's going on is we're sort of, there's 4 special rate schemes which are being looked at this evening, which will return with reports in September. That is Greensborough, Watsonia, Eaglemont and McLeod. So with regards to Watsonia, this is a very important one. Not that any of them aren't important, but with regards to the impacts of North East Link starting, and that will be impacting definitely over the next 5 years. So to be able to navigate residents through that, those within the municipality, visitors, to allow the traders to function well, those using those shops to function well. Our library is there. Also, we have the Watsonia Town Square, which is being built or developed, which will be happening very, very soon. So that's another construction site area where the traders need to be supported through. And part of what happens is part of these monies are to inform the community that the shops are open, they're functioning, how to get to the shops that they've been using for many, many years, and how to keep supporting them over the construction period, because they'll still function very, very well and they'll still give great service, and it still will be a great area. Our library still needs to function there, all the shops need to function, the churches are there, the RSL's there. So it's basically a hive that needs support, and these special rate schemes do deliver the monies that are matched. Council contributes some, the traders pay a special rate and they contribute some as well, and that is used for things such as marketing, graffiti removal, many, many things. So thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to be able to move this evening, and thank you, Councillor Grotti, for seconding.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yeah, just like to acknowledge that it is a great partnership that we have as a council with the Watsonia traders. And I think what's been great over the years is, it's a strong and open partnership where the traders have not been afraid at times to provide some frank advice and guidance to us, and that's helped us to go away and reevaluate our approach. And I think vice versa as well. And I think because of that openness and engagement, we've been able to navigate a number of challenging issues, COVID, of course, and now with the North East Link. Like to just acknowledge the work that our Mayor and the Ward Council are doing now with the North East Link and a new advocacy campaign. And good work, and thank you for your efforts on that. Hesham, great that you're here tonight. We love working with you. And maybe just hold off for another 2.5 years on calling me a former councillor. But good on you, mate.
Thank you, Councillor Grotti. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 7.3, Eaglemont Village Special Charge. There is one speaker on this item. Not sure if Mary Ann Coffey is here. No, not outside. Okay. So in the absence of Mary Ann, there's an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Moved, Councillor Castaldo. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Malikan. Councillor Castaldo.
Yes, unfortunately we didn't see Mary Ann today, the Centre Manager. I'd like to note her hard work in this Trader Association and the hard work of Liz from the Chocolate Shop. It was just 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, Heritage Day that the Trader Association put on. Was absolutely sensational with the Red Rattler going down the rail line. It was an event with heritage cars. Just the length that the Trader Association with a limited budget went to deliver a project and a special day of that scale. I just want to recognise them as an association delivering well for the local community, and with a little amount of money they do a lot, and I continue to support these programs and welcome their hard work into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 7.4, consideration of submissions, McLeod Special Charge. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, as an officer recommendation. Moved, Councillor Malikan. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Malikan.
will make a few comments. I went to see the President of the Traders Association, very enthusiastic Nouri, very enthused about this. Very excited to see it continue, because what these Traders Association do is they force the traders to come together, form a committee and appoint someone as president, and we have one of them here tonight, and he's not looking, but he's asleep. But it forces them to come together and make plans how they can help each other, how they can promote their centres, and they could create long-term plans for a 5-year vision for their area, and that's very helpful. And I remember I went to a Main Street Award, which is the organisation that looks after shopping centres right across Australia, and Banyule was singled out as the only council at the time that had such a scheme, and how successful it had been, and other councils were very keen to follow it. And there have been a few councils that have done that, but this is a unique scheme right across Banyule that has been enormously successful and advantageous to our traders associations. And we talked about it at McLeod before, the little playground has certainly given it a boost, but the traders association down there is extremely active. And Nouri drives it with a passion that is unbelievable, and he gets things done. And they do enormous good work. And I know that the Christmas down there, Christmas festival they have down there is sensational. There's a small market running there now. They have so many things in the little rotunda. It's just a sensational place to be, and the Traders Association is behind many of these things. And I'll support this tonight because I think it's a fantastic initiative. The staff do a great job to run it, but it's the traders coming together to make plans and to benefit each other, and it's been very successful, so I'll continue to support it.
Thank you, councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? All councillors must vote. That is carried. Item 8.1, property transaction report. There are no speakers on this item, and there is an officer recommendation. Can I please have a councillor move? Moved, Councillor Champion. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Garotti. Councillor Champion, do you wish to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. Just very, very briefly, I just would like to thank our officer for taking the time to create this. We did ask for this a couple of years ago now, sort of a report every 6 months. So I really appreciate the time our officers take to create this for us, just to keep on track. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.2, award of contract Beverley Road Oval. There is a proposed motion that a councillor would like to move, I believe. Can I please have a councillor? Councillor Castaldo, could you please take us through the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Item 1 as is. Item 2 is note the installation of 1.1 metre perimeter fence will be black post and rail fence only and not include a black PVC coated chain mesh. And 3 and 4 as noted in the papers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Melican. Councillor Castaldo, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This project has been a few years in the making, and missing last year's grass growing season, we had to delay it one entire year. That happened because we had to do a small amendment to the planning permit, which just came up on the previous oval, so I hope that oval doesn't have the delay that this one did, because we had to consider flooding impacts from the oval. This year we've gone out to tender, and there's been an additional fund request. Given the challenging environment in delivering projects in this time of high inflation and shortage of contractors in many cases, I'm supportive of accepting this contract. We've made a small cost saving in the amendment and is a response to a number of conversations with club authorities and members. That said, I look forward to the ground and facilities upgrade if we pass this tonight. That should see the ground operational early next year, within 6 months, and in all its glory under the new LED lights. And the club at Banyule will be very grateful for this significant project and will deliver for many parents in a way that will send a lot of kids home not so muddy, and better sporting field, better quality of play for the cricketers and everyone else on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. Does a seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I also like the added value of the investment in passive recreation. I think that's quite exciting. I now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.3, Financial Management Report, June 2022 performance. There are no speakers on this item and there is an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I please have a councillor move a motion? Moved, Councillor Garotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Champion. Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just like to start off by sending a very big thank you to Mark, to Tanya and to the entire finance team on what is a good result for council. But I suppose more importantly, just the tremendous amount of work that they've undertaken. So we have rolled out a new rating scheme. We've delivered a budget. We've delivered a rolling 10-year asset plan. They're delivering the financial audited accounts as we speak. It's a tremendous amount of work that's been undertaken, and particularly with the relatively last, with the rating change that council resolved upon. So I just wanted to say my thank you, and on behalf of council, to you and Tanya and your team. We know that we drive you hard, and we know that we have very high expectations of Tanya and the reporting that's provided. And if Tanya's listening in or Mark can relay it, just please say thank you, because it's really good work that they do and we tremendously appreciate the service that we receive. Just a couple of things in regard to the report. So it was obviously a very good result compared to the last forecast, which is pleasing. But we was, like I pointed out earlier in the evening, we still fell short to budget by $5 million. So what that means is that we are heading into very tricky and challenging territory. And I think that what officers are probably seeing and colleagues now is maybe a more hawkish approach from myself, and given my finance background, around looking at the budget. Because unfortunately now, in terms of where our economy is going, things are tightening up. And we've got a big obligation upon ourselves and our community, like we have in the past, but particularly now in coming years, just to scrutinise every dollar closely and make sure that we continue to run this council sustainably. I know that because of the tremendous amount of work that the finance team has been doing, CE informed me we won't be receiving a July month-end update. That's fine, but I would just maybe ask Mark, through yourself, whether it's possible at the next briefing, just a verbal update, how we're going compared to budget, just so that if there's any early signs that we need to be aware of as a council about how we're tracking, we're onto it, and we can support you and Darren and Al just to make sure that we're steering the ship right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. To a response from Director Mark Gilio.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mayor. I think, early to call in terms of the deep analysis of the July results, but I think the early signs is that our revenue streams will be impacted, particularly through winter and some of the services that we operate, in particular our leisure services area, our leisure centres have probably taken the biggest impact, and will continue to do that early on, and some of our parking revenue as well. I think we've got to watch that, because they can be big movements, particularly during winter, and with the cautious approach during winter that people have taken in returning to those services. We do know that we've had some, there's going to be some pressure on those revenue streams, or the non-rate revenue streams. And as I mentioned a couple of the last council meeting, particularly around the capital works program with delivery pressures, so cost and delivery pressures. And we can see those coming through already with the premium amount we're paying just in our capital works program, which is going to make it really, really tight, and you know, some cost pressures around delivery of that program within that budget. So we're already starting on the back foot, so to speak, but we've got obviously to continue to monitor the financials on a regular basis and then report back to council where there's opportunities to make some adjustments.
Thank you, Director Gilio. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor De Pasquale.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, we've actually got a really big job on our hands coming up the next 1 or 2 financial years, because not only did we set this last budget not necessarily having the impacts of inflation, so generally it's going to take a little bit of time for that to start hitting and us to be able to see the impacts of that and how much it hurts on the bottom line. But then also there's been impacts which we're continually going to see, such as supply of services and materials, supply materials, everything from timber to concrete to stones, dirt, everything we need to be doing our capital works program. If it becomes harder to get, we would expect that would push the price up for those who are bidding for those things. So we may have, you know, not only inflation, but we may also have other costs which will go up as well. So we've got a really hard job to do as a group of councillors to try and make this balance in the next financial year, the next 2 financial years. So I think we're working really well together to be able to work through that. We're definitely getting as much information from our community as possible. We'll be getting that information through submissions. When we put the upcoming budgets out, what the community thinks about it, how we're going. We definitely don't want to get into a situation where we have to, well, no one wants to decrease services or anything that people have been getting for the last 20 or 30 years. We're definitely not going to do that. We just have to be more clever at how we deliver our capital works program and how we, you know, become really rigid with regards to the budget. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Does anyone other councillor wish to speak? I might add a few comments. Well, thank you, Councillor Garotti, for mentioning the highlights as well as your watchful eye on the process, or your hawkish approach. It's really important. And I'd like to mention that this report also takes into consideration the assessment of the impacts of COVID on operations, on capital works expenditure, on investment activity, among other financial indicators, and not to mention the premium, as mentioned by Director Gilio, on our capital works, the premium that we're paying on that. And, you know, our residents expect high quality, modern facilities, and we have to be very careful on how we accommodate that, because we also want that for our residents. So I look forward to the next report at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting coming up. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. (8.4) ALGA, National General Assembly. There are no speakers on this item and there is an officer recommendation in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Moved Councillor Malikan. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Castaldo. Councillor Malikan.
I think an exceptional report. I had the pleasure of going to the ALGA conference in Canberra, and it's always enlightening. It's also good to speak to fellow councillors, not only from Victoria but from all around Australia, and realise the many issues we face together, and some of the differences that some of our smaller, far-flung councils and some of the issues they have. But it was fascinating to read about the emergency managements and some of the accounts from some of the councillors about the impact that the recent floods in New South Wales had, but also the bushfires in Victoria. Yeah, we're quite lucky in Banyule. We haven't experienced those natural disasters, but they has a real impact, and not only physically but a mental impact on many of those councils that will take many years to recover from. But the Uluru Statement from the Heart was certainly a hot topic, and we had some excellent presentations on that as well, and that was well worthwhile. But the interaction and engagement with fellow councillors was certainly a bit of a highlight, and I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for coming along. The CEO had attended this time, and the first time I've known that a CEO of Banyule has attended that conference, so it was great to see our CEO there. Unfortunately, a few people got COVID as a result of the conference, and I was one of them. But I managed to get back to Victoria in one piece, but then I did catch it a couple of days later. But a very good conference, well worth going to. I'd encourage all councillors to attend at least once or twice in a term. I think going every year is a bit excessive, but certainly attending one or two a year is a term I think is quite beneficial, and I would encourage my fellow councillors to do that.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This was another important event to understand where we fit in the broader scheme of Australian local government. Both the speakers were inspiring, brought up a number of subject matters that flags areas that we will be addressing in coming times. The voice to Parliament, as mentioned by Councillor Melican. We had the opportunity to see a trade show, some important areas that are going to provide some assistance for us to work through some of our climate change program, electrification of vehicles and machinery, opportunities that we as councillors don't always get the opportunity to see, but was inspiring to see there are solutions to areas that we have got concerns of delivering. So that was one of the things that I took away from it. Also networking with councillors across the country showed us some of the other areas in which their pressure points are. Many were in common with us in our council, but others are a consequence of actions we take, burdens on the country councils. And so it was a valuable experience. As Councillor Melican said, I wouldn't encourage it too frequently, but it's very important as a good opportunity for new councillors and existing ones to continue to develop a network of advisors or advice from a broad industry area. So I think it was a valuable event, and I caught COVID as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. No, you both did. You must have been very close over the when you were up there, sitting next to each other maybe. Just a couple of observations in the report, Mayor, which I think is quite good to know, I think interesting. Local government is deemed to be the most productive level of government, receiving only 4% of the monies that are brought in from the community. So there's federal and state governments taking taxation, whereas local government works on rates. So that's 4% of the money available. So I think it's extraordinary that, as a community member myself, living in this municipality, I walk around and we see our parks and our things that are upkept and our gardens and our kinders and all these things, and to be able to do that on 4% of is fantastic, I think. But what it says to me is if it's 4% and our revenue with rates is, over 100 million, I'm just doing the sums. It's a lot of taxation dollars that the state and federal government have to, for us to use, I suppose, or can I put it that way, use for things that we should have as communities. So I don't think my calculator goes that many numbers. So there's a lot of revenue there and we as local council fight as hard as we possibly can to make sure that the state government don't ask us to do anything that we shouldn't be doing, and that everyone pays their share and does their equal share. So the community needs to understand that we're constantly vigilant about the monies that we do raise with the rates. We are prudent about spending them and allocating them. And also we're just being wary on behalf of the community to make sure that not too much rate goes to things that taxation dollars should go to as well. But that's very important, and that has shifted considerably over the years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Okay. Yeah, just with the Assembly, I learnt a lot from all the guest speakers and, you know, the itinerary that was presented to us, but I also learnt a lot just speaking to other councillors from around the country and speaking to CEOs from around the country and having just those incidental conversations. And I'd ask them, what are your top 3 issues across councils? And they were rather similar. The theme of the Assembly was Partners in Progress, as mentioned in the report. And, you know, some of those themes that I've just mentioned, just speaking off the cuff with people, was housing affordability, climate change transition, and restoring integrity of federal funding. And the Assembly committed to a motion, you know, as well supporting the Uluru Statement, which was welcomed by everyone around the country. So that was quite important and quite warming. I was particularly interested in hearing from the local economists, and with the takeaway that, as Councillor De Pasquale just mentioned, that councils are the most efficient. So to add to that 4%, so 4% of the national taxation providing 25% of the services. I hope that was right, Councillor Melican Castaldo. It was 25, so we provide 25%, and that's an efficiency that's not highlighted a lot. So that was the takeaway. A lot of the councillors were taking that back to their wider councillor group about the efficiencies. So there were also 106 policy initiatives that were adopted at the Assembly, and they will be implemented over the next year. And I'm looking forward to the reports on that. And the key issues that I'd like to mention, particularly for rural councils, were the unprecedented droughts and bushfires and floods that we are not, you know, immune to. But it's interesting to hear that, you know, a lot more work needs to be done proactively in this space. It's a real reactionary approach from different councils as to when these disasters happen and how they deal with it, and then the money that's allocated to it. So the other thing is important for us to continue to meet with our federal member to highlight the importance of our sustainable and transparent funding for Banyule, because that was the other major theme, to get that transparent funding back to councils. So I don't know if the timer stopped for me, but I'll leave it there. I put the motion to a vote. The motion is carried. (8.5) Audit and Risk Committee minutes. There are no speakers on this item, and there is an officer recommendation in the papers. Can I have a councillor move?
Mayor, I'm happy to move, but I'm just checking whether I didn't actually attend the meeting, so I don't know whether I can actually move those minutes.
Yes.
So if I may get another councillor to please put their hand up.
Move.
Thank you, councillor.
Councillor Castaldo. Do I have a seconder? It's okay. I can second it. I will second it. I was there as a non-voting representative. Does the mover wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.6, record of councillor meetings. There are no speakers. Could I have a councillor move? Moved. Councillor Champion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mitsonikos. Does the mover wish to speak? Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 10.1, volunteer guidelines for Friends Group who operate on council-owned or managed land. This is a notice of motion submitted by Councillor McKern. I'm now calling the councillor to read out their motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have, in relation to the motion, an alternative that has been developed that's up on the screen. So I'll start by reading this out, and then explain the reason for the notice of motion. That a report be presented to Council regarding the development of a Banyule volunteer framework. 2, inclusion of guidelines for environmental volunteers working on council land to be incorporated as a subset of the broader proposed Banyule volunteer framework. And 3, a process for council collaboration with the Banyule community, including existing friends groups, to prepare the guidelines. I might just make an amendment to the third point of that motion, Madam Mayor, including existing friends groups and other environmental volunteers. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Castaldo. Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a significant initiative for Banyule for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it speaks to the popularity of volunteering in Banyule, which is actually noticeably higher than the average for Greater Melbourne. So we in Banyule are great volunteers. And having parameters for engagement that all understand and agree to, all stakeholders, is important for smooth sailing. To this end, the development of a volunteer framework for Banyule is timely and currently underway. And shortly, and through you, Mayor, I'll ask the Director of Community Wellbeing to speak to that framework. Before I do, the second reason I think this is an important initiative for Banyule is the high value that Banyule residents place on our natural environment. We see it in our surveys, we see it in our council plan. We know that many Banyule residents choose Banyule as their home for its abundance of open space. As I mentioned earlier, Banyule is blessed, thanks largely to its waterways, of managing more than 600 hectares of open space on behalf of its community. Vital to the objectives of Banyule's environmental strategic plans is the involvement of friends and other environmental groups to assist the work of Council's staff, especially in Council's designated bushland sites. The reality is we couldn't do it alone. We just don't have the staff, the resources. So our volunteers are vital for us to achieve the targets we want for our environmental management. The objective with regards to the specific guidelines we're looking for, and that is friends and other environmental groups working on council land, is to reconcile council obligations, especially in relation to risk management, with volunteer vision, which I've observed in my time as a councillor can be really contended space and lead to conflict, and does little to progress council's environmental and community interests. I believe that one of the success stories of volunteering is community empowerment. Advancing shared interests of community and agency advances community development, but also builds our city's social and environmental capital. We've heard councillors this evening talking about managing our financial capital, but being a holistic council, we value all elements of capital. Environment, social and human are as fundamental as finance. And this can only truly happen via a bona fide, meaningful collaboration between council and community, which is why we have the third point, that those specific guidelines are prepared in collaboration between council and representative of our friends and environmental groups. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd like to invite the Director of Community Wellbeing to speak to the timing of the development of the overarching framework and the specific guidelines for Banyule friends and other environmental volunteers.
Director Kath Brackett.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. We would anticipate to have a draft of the overarching Banyule volunteer framework to Council for consideration in October this year. seeking your support to go out for broader community consultation and engagement on it. So, I'm sorry, October. What did I say? Yeah, October this year. Yeah.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd firstly like to commend Councillor McKern for taking the time and delving into this subject matter as deeply as she has. This is an important framework that we as a council can adopt so that when issues do arise, when there's differing viewpoints or views or visions with the community, both wanting to achieve generally the same thing, but how we go about doing it, that's a challenge. And I know those that lead organisations are driven, and sometimes it's a challenging being united in achieving those goals. So I commend this evening. I'm looking forward to the framework coming, and specifically some of the sections in there that deals with our environmental groups who are going to be responsible for some significant contributions to our biodiversity and our general land use, because we can't resource it all as the council. So it is important that we get that right. We do everything we possibly can to encourage them to participate and really amp up the work that we as a council can do. So thank you, Councillor McKern. And Director Kat Brackett, for your team, look forward to the work to come through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Okay. I just want to thank Councillor McKern for your foresight on this. Friends of groups are very important to us and we appreciate all the work that they do. Guidelines are important though, and particularly for occupational health and safety. We have to be very careful as a council. So this notice of motion will explore a new process to facilitate volunteer groups. I now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 11, general business. We have items from Councillor McKern, Councillor Champion and myself. I hope I'm correct there. So we'll begin with Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two items. First is the item regarding the absolute honour I had recently to MC, in your absence, Madam Mayor, the launch of a book about an Ivanhoe artist written by an art historian who is also local in Heidelberg, Caroline Miley. And she launched this book recently here at Ilch about Christian Waller and the stained glass work of Christian Waller. Christian was born in 1894. She was the first wife of Napier Waller. So she lived at the Napier Waller residence in Ivanhoe. Very few people know about her, and there is a backstory around this that I won't delve into here. But she is accredited with being Australia's sole woman professional stained glass artist. And in her short life, she died, I think, at only 59, she produced well over 100 stained glass artworks. Now, this book is a very weighty and beautifully written tribute to Christian Waller, and we're lucky enough to have some of Christian's work here at St James Anglican Church. There's going to be a talk and a tour by Dr. Caroline Miley, the book's author, on the 17th of September at 2:30 here at St James. And Dr. Miley is actually going to do a tour of the 12 pieces of stained glass work that were installed in the church. On the screen, we have an image of the book, and I believe it'll be on sale on the day of the tour. And I think there was also an image of an angel, one of the stained glass pieces, that was resurrected from St Stephen's Church, if any of you will remember that, the old St Stephen's Church in Fairy Hills, when that was sold off for private development and installed here at St James. So for those people who are interested in the tour, you can Google Christian Waller stained glass, and I believe there is some information on the tour on that website. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Some interesting information about Christian Waller. And I would also like to pay tribute. I was recently informed by a friend of Eaglemont Village, John Walkley, that a highly valued member of that Friends of group, Brian Roberts, passed away recently. So that's a sad announcement. Brian was over 95 years of age and was a valued member of the Friends of Eaglemont Village, having done a lot of planting work together with his wife June. They were considered some of Eaglemont's royalty, known as Eaglemont's royal couple, and were well known for their wonderful community contributions. So very sad to hear about the passing of Brian Roberts, and thank you to John Walkley for letting me know. That's all I have on general business. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for those, Councillor McKern. Our next item of general business, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Champion.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Last week, Banyule Council opened its art salon at the Ivanhoe Library and Cultural Hub. Every 2 years, members of our Banyule community have the opportunity to create and display their artwork, which is professionally arranged by our arts and culture team. This year's theme is Outside These Four Walls, in appreciation of our external environment during our lockdowns of the last 2 years, and is presented in Gallery 275. The exhibition is free and on display until Thursday the 29th of September. In addition, in Loft 275, Thou Art Mum artworks created by 35 mums from Banyule and Nillumbik are on display until Sunday the 21st of August. The themes centre around interconnection and community. So there is an opportunity to vote for your favourite piece as the People's Choice Award, and best of all, each piece is available to buy, of which I have bought one. Thanks, Mayor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's pretty special. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, and the last item of general business is the Youth Summit recommendations. So on Tuesday, the 2nd of August, I had the pleasure of attending and speaking at the Summit Report Card, where young people presented outcomes from the 2021 Banyule Youth Summit recommendations, along with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Champion, Councillor Malikan and Councillor Castaldo. So the Banyule Youth Summit fostered connection and participation opportunities from young people since 2014, and there's been a very valuable opportunity for Council to consult with young people. In May 2021, the Banyule Youth Services hosted the biannual Youth Summit. Young people came, they discussed, they debated the important themes, so community, the environment and the lives of themselves and their peers. Topics included climate change, gender equality, education, consent, racism, LGBTQIA+, Somali Australian young people, mental health and cultural diversity. Following the summit, young people and officers worked to achieve great outcomes for the Banyule community, and these outcomes were reported at this report card event. It was fabulous. I won't go too much more into it because this will come back to our next council meeting, but there was an opportunity to report on a year of implementation and celebrate everything that's been achieved by young people who have a voice, and this is a way for them to share that voice with us as a council. The report card really does provide an opportunity for leaders to really listen. The kids were, a bit nervous presenting, but, they said, oh, this is really, really hard, but as they probably presented better than I ever would at that age. So they were quite inspiring, and we look forward for everyone to see the results of the report card at the September council meeting. And I'll leave it at that. Public questions. We have received 5 public questions. There is also an answer to a public question received in advance of the 18th of July council meeting, which will also be included, and they will be included in the minutes of the meeting. This will be available later in the week on our website. Councillors and committee, as per the council meeting agenda papers for tonight's meeting, there is one confidential item to be discussed in a closed council meeting. As such, I'm seeking a motion to close the council meeting in accordance with Section 62A of the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is required to be closed to members of the public for the consideration of a confidential matter. Can I please have a councillor move and second to close the meeting? Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Mitsonikos. The next ordinary meeting of council will be held on the 5th of September. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. I now adjourn the meeting at 8:55 p.m. and I thank you in the gallery for attending, and I thank people for watching.